All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon at our monthly webinar with the Do Influence. My name is Olutayo Sigunro, and on the webinar, we also have Miss Alicia Garnett, who is our education coordinator for the Do Influence. I am really excited to have two wonderful speakers here today. We have Miss Nicole Crooks and Miss Erin Hallinan. They are both wonderful, wonderful, wonderful colleagues of mine. Miss Nicole Crooks and Miss Erin Hallinan are both nurse practitioners. They are going to be talking to us today about nursing school, about how to be successful in nursing school, how to get into it, how to make it through, and nursing and beyond. What I wanted to do was have each of them maybe just take a few seconds and additionally introduce themselves. Because they are so phenomenal, I want to make sure I hand the spotlight over to them as soon as I can. So this is me doing that.
So I guess I can go first. My name is Nicole Crooks. I am a adult gerontology nurse practitioner here in the state of Texas, actually. Originally from Ohio, which is kind of how I met the Do Influence creator here. And I am definitely proud to be speaking to you all this afternoon.
And my name is Erin Hallinan. I am also an adult gerontology acute care nurse practitioner, double boarded and family nurse practitioner as well, and work here in Bridgeport, Connecticut in the intensive care unit as an APR and intensivist. And I work with Dr. Sigunro. She's one of my surgeon colleagues. And we have fun, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Do Influence because I think it's a really worthwhile project. Back to you, Ms. Nicole.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started.
I'm going to mute now.
As you all know, you are here to talk about, well, we are here to talk to you today about how to be successful in nursing school. So there on the slide is our alphabet soup of credentials and things that we hold. So let's first start off. If you open up the app, there's the QR code again. You can scan that. Just kind of want to see what we have on, or what type of participants we have on the call today. So if you can, you should have a screen that allows you to free text. And let's just kind of see why we have people on today in regards to what attracts them to the nursing profession. And as you all enter in first information, it should pop up. So helping people, which is probably one of the most common. Obviously, nursing is a caring profession, and that's what we do. We help people when they are in their weakest and their sickest moments. So it sounds like we got a general consensus there to kind of help others. The objective of today's webinar will be to give you some guidance in regards to high school preparation. So things that you can do while still in high school, if you know that nursing is the career that you would like to enter into in the future, how to pick a nursing school. We'll kind of talk about nursing courses and clinical courses, and then we'll actually talk to you about, once you have graduated from nursing school, what other options are out there for you. So before we get started, let's just kind of see what we have here. Do we have any high school students on the webinar today? If so, what grade are you in? And also, are you already in college? So let's see. It looks like we got one. We have an other, and then it looks like we've got, okay. I got all these things in my way because I'm sharing. Hold on, let me move. So we got some juniors and seniors, as well as somebody who is already in nursing school and is a nursing student. And then it looks like we have somebody too that's in college, but not quite in the nursing program yet. So we got a nice little mix here, which will be good. So we'll start at the beginning for the high schoolers. What can you do in high school to get you to that nursing degree? So the first thing we're going to talk today about is that we'll talk about some science classes that will be beneficial to you. We'll talk about ACT and SATs, as well as GPAs, as well as the big thing, money. So science classes. As high school students, obviously, we always try to find the easiest way out. I am guilty. But I will say, when it's time to pick those classes, you really want to focus in on those science classes. You have that opportunity to pick. They're going to give you that booklet. Focus in on your biology classes, your chemistry classes, anatomy and physiology. And if your high school has a microbiology class, that will also be a very good class to take as well. All of those courses, which we will talk about later, you're going to be required to take in any nursing program that you enroll in. So if you can develop that good foundation and baseline on a high school level, it'll help you out drastically once you do get to the college or university of your choice. We all know, you'll have multiple options. Botany is great. Earth science is going to be great. Astronomy, those are all great classes. I'm sure you can learn a wealth of information in those science classes as well. Unfortunately, it probably won't do you too much good in the realms of nursing, because those are just science classes that, they don't really mean too much in the nursing profession. ACT and SAT, pick one. They're the same thing. They test on the same content. It's just really going to be a matter of personal preference in regards to which one you actually take. My recommendation would be to visit the websites of both of those, kind of compare, contrast. They probably have sample questions. Look at some of those sample questions. If they have free sample tests, I would encourage you to take those. If your high school is having a speaker or a representative from either of those testing bodies come in, I would highly encourage you to attend those courses as well. I would encourage you to take that first one your junior year, so that way if you don't get the targeted score that you want or you don't reach your goal, it gives you your senior year to be able to make up. So what is that target score? Look at the schools that you plan to apply to, your top 3 or your top 5 schools that you think you are likely to apply to, and see what their requirement is. And that should be your goal. I don't want to sit here and tell you a 19 is sufficient, and then the school that you want is saying, no, you need a 21. So make sure that when you're applying for these schools and you're narrowing down your schools, one of those things that you're looking at is the requirements to get in, to include the SAT and or ACT. GPA is the same way. Obviously, the higher, the better. That is a very fluid number as well. So once again, look at your targeted schools, see what they say, see what they are requesting you have. And I will always tell you to strive higher than what their target is. You want to do, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, you want to do what you can do to make yourself stick out from the hundreds of other applicants that are going to be, trying to do the same thing as you, the same thing that you're trying to do. Scholarships. Your school counselor will be a wealth of information for a lot of scholarships, especially national scholarships, those real broad general scholarships. But another good source for money is the school that you plan to apply to. Once again, once you narrow down those schools, look to see what scholarships they offer. They may offer a general scholarship for incoming freshmen from high school coming in. Once you get to the nursing program, they may have scholarships specifically for the nursing students at their school. So all three, a lot of this is dictated by whatever school you are choosing, that you think you're going to go to. So there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. The best answer is going to be narrow down your schools and see what their requirements are. And then always, like I say, strive to be a little bit higher and do a little bit better than what they are asking. So clearly we must have a quiz. So it's probably telling you to put in your name. I'll wait for a couple names to pop up on the screen, and then we'll do our first little quote unquote quiz. And I believe for the quizzes, you have 20 seconds. So we got enough, so I'll go ahead. And time is up. So it looks like we've got a mixture of 1, 2, and 4. The correct answer is, as far as a RN, your answer is going to be 2. Your 1-year programs are typically for either your LPN or LVN programs. Those are still nurses, but they are not registered nurses. Next thing we'll talk about is how to decide on a school. So I know I gave a lot of information before where I said, you know, pick your top 3 or your top 5 schools that you would like to apply to. So how do we kind of pick which nursing school is right for me? The biggest thing, and where we'll spend the most time at, is accreditation. So what is accreditation? Accreditation is the process that evaluates nursing programs to determine if it is meeting specific state as well as national standards. The purpose of accreditation is to focus on the same standards and criteria across all nursing programs, and to ensure that there is some level of sameness within these programs, so that, you know, you guys are here in Connecticut, to make sure that Connecticut schools are in line with Ohio schools, are in line with Michigan schools, and there's no drastic changes between these nursing programs. The problem that we are having is, and I'm sure if you're, you know, looking at nursing school, you're seeing all of these great online nursing programs that are popping up literally everywhere. Typically, if you're going to go a traditional brick and mortar school, you probably really won't run into this issue too much, because a lot of your traditional schools are going to have accreditation already in process. What we're noticing and what we're seeing, though, is a lot of these online nursing programs are not accredited. And the problem with that is upon graduation, and we'll talk about boards or the NCLEX text later, but if you don't graduate from an accredited school, you probably will not be able to sit for boards. And if you can't sit for boards, that means that you cannot get licensed. And a lot of employers will not take you if you are not licensed. So basically, to sum it up, you go to school ultimately for nothing, with the inability to practice at the end. So make sure whatever school you are looking into is accredited. A couple of red flags for schools that may not be accredited is the price is either super, super cheap or super, super expensive. So, you know, if you notice some crazy prices and you're like, oh, my friend is going to school for this much per credit hour and this school has it for half that price, definitely make sure you start digging into that About Us section of their website to make sure that they are accredited. Another red flag is a school that offers like a bachelor's degree in like 1 or 2 years. So a bachelor's degree for most professions is going to be a 4-year degree. So if you have a school that is, you know, making you this promise that, oh, you can get a 4-year degree in 2 years, once again, another red flag that you might want to do a little extra digging to make sure that that school is actually accredited. We'll skip bullet point 2 and I'll come back to that. Let's jump into the third one, which is automatic admission into a nursing program versus do you have to apply to a nursing program upon completion of your prerequisites. So for me, I went to a school where I had to take my prerequisites. I was accepted into the university based off of my high school information. So my high school GPA and my SAT score. At the completion of those 2 years, I then had to apply again for the nursing program. When it came time for me to apply for the nursing program, they looked at my college GPA. So make sure as you're picking these programs, you kind of figure out if that's the route that your school has, or is your school a school that once you apply to the college or university, once you complete your prereqs, you just automatically transfer into the nursing program without having to apply again. Because like I say, if you're in a school where you will need to apply specifically for the nursing program, that GPA typically is going to be a huge factor. And if you are able to get into the actual nursing program portion of what you want to do. So another thing to look at when deciding on a program is, do you want to do a 2-year degree, an associate's degree, or would you prefer to complete a 4-year program or the bachelor's degree? Both of these degrees, regardless of which one you do, 2 or 4, will allow you to apply for entry-level positions. So there's no real difference there. You're going to be able to work regardless. Your biggest difference Obviously, your 2-year program's typically cheaper because you're taking less credit hours, you know, common sense. And that program is going to be 2 years quicker than your bachelor's. Those programs, the curriculum mainly focuses in on clinical skills. So that's really the training that you get. That's really, really where they focus. Like I say, you'll definitely be able to get a job. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of people who do opt to start out as an associate's degree prepared nurse, they do end up going back to school to obtain their bachelor's through what we call a bridge program. So as you're on these different school sites, you might see that they do offer bridge programs, and that's exactly what that's for. It's for that person who already has an associate's degree in nursing, but is looking to further his or her education. And then you have your 4-year degree programs, obviously going to be more expensive because you're taking more classes, more credit hours. The training here is focused, it goes a lot more in depth. So they get the clinical skills that your 2-year degree nurses get, but they also have a lot of leadership classes, nursing management classes, some social sciences, so your psych and sociology, as well as public and community health. So they are more well-rounded upon graduation than your 2-year degree nurses. Once again, you can get the same staff position at your local hospital with either degree. Your bachelor's degree does provide more room for growth and employment expansion, so to speak. So there are some positions, you know, if you think you want to go into leadership, management, administration, a lot of times your nurse educators in the hospital or your public health providers, they are oftentimes required to have a bachelor's degree versus an associate's. And that last bullet point, obviously money. I will admit, and I'm not sure about Erin, the state that I originally graduated from, there was no pay difference between our associate's degree nurses and our bachelor's degree nurses. You know, if there was pay differential, it really was because of a day shift versus night shift. But the hospital that I was at, there was no, you get a couple extra dollars per hour because you are bachelor's trained. So I don't know if the same is true in Connecticut.
No, in Connecticut, a baccalaureate prepared nurse can make more money than an associate degree nurse. The other piece of it is a lot of the hospitals mandate that you have to have a baccalaureate as a basic minimum level of education, even to apply to their positions. So you have to check with your state to see what the requirements are, and then you would also have to check with whatever hospital or healthcare system that you're potentially looking at for employment to see what their requirements are going to be in order to obtain employment there.
So once again, I guess that kind of goes back to that high school prep as you're looking at these schools and looking at the ACT requirements and your GPA requirements. Also kind of do some research on, like she said, hospital systems in your area to see what they're kind of looking for in regards to their nurses. So prerequisites. So we're in college, but we're not quite in the nursing program yet. So same here. Those science classes, we kind of already talked about. Hopefully you have developed a foundation and a baseline and got some basic information in these biology and chemistry classes, A&P, microbiology, because now you're in college and now you have to repeat all of those courses again. But at this time, you should have some baseline. You should know which ones you're good. Well, I shouldn't say good at, but which ones were easier for you versus which ones were more challenging for you. And I say that because a lot of these science classes are going to be very heavily weighted. And we kind of just talked about, do you need to reapply for or not reapply? Do you need to apply for the nursing program at the completion of your prerequisites? Because if you do, it's going to be these science classes that are really going to be the bulk of your GPA. So you want to make sure that you take these classes seriously, that you get in there and you excel in these classes. Yes, most colleges will allow you to sufficiently pass a class with a C. But because these classes are so heavily weighted, you kind of want to make sure you're striving for A's and B's in these classes that are superly heavily weighted into your GPA. As far as your other courses and electives, Obviously, there's going to be a slew of what you can take, just like in high school. And we always want to go the easy route. And I'm not saying that the easy route is incorrect, but I will say, make sure you have a balancing act. If you took chemistry and biology in high school and you did fairly well in biology, was, kind of sort of a walk in the park, not too challenging for you, great. But if you know that chemistry class, you really, really struggled in high school and it took a lot of time and effort, then you kind of want to schedule or pick your elective courses to kind of match that. So if biology was easy and you see a prerequisite, let's just say caring for the geriatric patient, take that class with that. And then maybe when you get to chemistry, they've got a bowling or a golf class that you can take. Try to balance it out so that you can focus in on those science classes, give them really the time that they need, the dedication that is going to be required for those classes. So like I say, healthy balance is what you're going to have to find out. And what that balance is to you could be completely different than somebody else that, you're in the program with. But, make your schedule for what is best for you and which, will ultimately provide you with the best route to success. So next, let's talk about learning styles. And so your phone or desktop, it should have changed. And let's see if we know what our learning style is. So 50-50, no auditory learners on the call today, it doesn't look like. And it looks like majority of us are visual learners. I am a visual learner as well. So knowing what your learning style is going to be key. If nobody answered that they did not know what their learning style was, if you don't know, here's a QR code that you can scan. It'll take you, I think it's like a 20-question quiz so that you can determine your learning style. Knowing that is going to be imperative in regards to being able to comprehend and retain information. If you are studying in a way that is not conducive to your learning style, the chances of you being able to retain that information is going to be slim to none. So you want to make sure that you're not wasting your time by studying in a way that is just not going to work for you, which can cause obviously lots of frustration. So make sure you know your learning style so that you can study appropriately. Cliche, obviously read the book. Obviously we get a syllabus every semester, and you look at it and it says, come to class and read chapters 1 and 2. Very cliche, but you got to do it. You cannot read the book and you might be able to pass a quiz. But when it comes down to the actual nursing test that you'll have to take for your classes, you're going to have to read the book. A lot of that testing information is going to come from the book. Your course, your theory classes, the theory component and the lecture component will oftentimes provide you with the cliff notes or the spark notes. But to get that real, true nitty gritty, you're going to have to dig into those course books. And I don't, for some of you who may not know, they can be quite thick, but the content and the information that is in those pages is going to be crucial, not only for you to get through school, but for you to pass boards and even, upon boards, because there's so much in those books that, they cannot teach in class, but you never know, what your patient assignment is going to be and what information from that book you're going to need. So make sure you read the book. At this point, now that you're actually in nursing school, you may find that your social life is becoming less and less existent. And that's okay. It is a sacrifice that we oftentimes have to make to get us through that rigorous program and the rigorous coursework. So do know that hopefully upon graduation, you will get that social life back, but you may notice for a couple of years that you kind of got to chill with some of your extracurricular activities. Clinicals is the hands-on portion where now you're in a hospital, you have a patient. All of that practicing that you've done in the skills lab or on the mannequins or in the skills lab with your partner. All of those case studies that you've done in class, now it's hands-on, it's real life, and you have a patient and you have to give them medications and they're ringing that call bell, and they've got questions because they've just been diagnosed with something, and and they're dependent on you to be that person to answer all of those questions and care for them. Once again, this is where that information from the book is going to be very, very important. Like I say, you might have that patient with the diagnosis that you didn't talk about in class because it wasn't in the cliff notes, but now here's your patient, on the second day of clinical, and so this is another part where, like I say, that reading that information in those books is going to be very imperative. Also be prepared in clinicals for kind of some mishaps. You've been practicing in the skills lab and everything in the skills lab is perfect. You go to do that Foley catheter check off and you've got your mannequin, all the body parts are just right, anatomy is great, the BMI on this mannequin is 24, and now here you are in clinical, and your instructor says, hey, this guy needs a catheter, and you go in there and his BMI is nowhere near, the mannequin that you've had in school. So this is that hands-on learning experience. But like I say, be prepared for some changes to kind of get out of that perfect world that you've seen all this time in school. All right. And lastly, job preparation. So you've graduated high school, you selected that nursing school, you went to nursing school, you made it through your prereqs, you're in that last semester of the actual nursing program itself. How do you prepare for a job? So first thing you have to do, we kind of talked about this with the accreditation, you have to take boards. Look into your state laws to kind of see what their rules and requirements are. Your school will ask you, where do you want us to send your information to? Just because you are in school in Connecticut does not mean that you have to test in Connecticut, does not mean that your school has to send your information to the Connecticut Board of Nursing. So they will ask you upon graduation, where do you want us to send all of your information to? And that is kind of where you will let them know, if you have plans to, let's say, move to Florida once you graduate, then you'll want them to send all of your stuff to the Florida Board of Nursing. It doesn't make sense to get licensed in Connecticut if you're getting ready to leave. So save yourself some money, some time, and just have the school send it directly to the Florida State Board of Nursing. You cannot dictate how quickly your school is going to send that information. So please, be patient with the schools as they are gathering and sending, collecting everything that they need to send to those boards of nursing. Once the Board of Nursing gets all of your information from your school, you will get an ATT number, which will then allow you to go online and actually schedule your NCLEX test. Once you schedule your NCLEX test, you'll go in, it's going to be a proctored test. You can take that test wherever you want to. Once again, if you're in the process of moving from state to state, you can graduate here and you can move and take your test in whatever state you've just moved to. You'll take it. Results are typically available 24 to 48 hours upon completion of that test. Yes, you will get all of this wonderful stuff in the mail saying congratulations. You will probably receive something in the mail from whatever Board of Nursing you chose to have your information sent to. So make sure as you're filling out that stuff for your college that you have a good address. Because as you're getting all these certifications and stuff, you want to make sure that it physically ends up in your hand. Yes, everything is computer and electronic, but it is nice to actually have physical copies to be able to file away as well. State licensure, you can be licensed in multiple states. We do have compact states within nursing. Basically what that allows is for you to practice in one state with the license from another while you're in the process of obtaining that other state license. So it does make, if you're moving, this is really something, that travel nurses look into because it allows them seamless ability to practice without having to spend weeks and months waiting on an actual nursing license. So that's something to think about. And then lastly, resumes and cover letters. If you have worked as a nurse assistant or something very similar while you've been in nursing school, definitely list that experience. I would encourage you to, for all of the clinicals that you have taken throughout your your coursework, list however many hours that you had in that clinical site. I would list the type of floor that you were on. And if you had anything that was out of the normal, I would probably list that too, because that's going to be good experience. If your GPA if you graduate nursing school with a 4.0, I would probably throw that on there. Not a requirement, but what you want to do with these resumes, cover letters, thank you letters, all of that stuff is you want to make yourself stand out. Nursing managers, they get bombarded at certain portions of the year, once schools let out and people graduate. So if this nurse manager gets 15 applicants all on the same day, do whatever you can do to make yourself stick out from those other 14 applicants. So, they're not looking for an extensive resume because they understand that you are a new graduate. But like I say, whatever you can do to make yourself stick out, just do it. So cover letters and thank you letters, none of that stuff is mandatory, but it can be that extra component that can make you stick out from that other, those other 14 people who have sat in with this office manager and interviewed that, just send in that thank you letter, within 24 hours after that interview, that can ultimately be that thing that lands you your first position. And so I think that's it for me. And we have another quiz really quick. And the answer for this one was all of the above: nurse practitioner, nurse midwife, as well as a CNR or CRNA or nurse anesthetist. And so, Erin, it looks like you answered the questions the quickest. There was a lot of people that got both questions right, but it looks like she did it, I guess, in a total of 13 seconds. So she beat Ty by literally 1 second.
That's just because I'm the oldest.
But good job.
So now that was awesome, Nicole. Thank you. So now that brings us to my section, which is to talk about beyond nursing school, advanced nursing careers and leadership. And, this is a pretty important topic because just like you have to do your legwork and your research when researching what nursing program you want to go to, what state you work in, what hospital you're going to choose, what career path you're going to take. Ultimately, we all kind of reach a point in our careers where we kind of have to decide, are we going to stay bedside or do we have interests in other things? And I was one of those people that I'm a nerd through and through, had to know everything about everything, always never wanted to have to rely on anyone else while I was at the bedside. I really needed to know the hows and the whys and to be able to anticipate what was happening with my patients and to provide the best care possible. And I also kind of had maxed out periodically, I had gotten into nursing education at the bedside. I became a unit-based educator and a level 2 charge nurse 6 months out of school as a staff RN. And then from there, I moved into the critical care arena because I was like, well, I'm not really challenged very much on a regular floor. And I don't know, depending on what kind of learning style you have and what your career aspirations are, it's important to know what else is out there and what the next step could potentially be. And that brings us to advanced nursing careers. Next slide. Thank you. So what do you want to do? There's many pathways to choose and none of them are wrong. They all have benefits. They all have sacrifice involved. If you were to choose a career as a CRNA, that is a pathway for a nurse anesthetist. You know, if you fancy yourself in the operating room, love wearing scrubs and masks all day, and love watching people operate. I mean, some people are natural born attracted to surgery. Tayo. Myself too. I love surgical critical care and trauma. I love mangled humans, but I fully confess I lose interest after 12 hours. Like once we put them back together, I'm like, rah, rah, here we go. You know, they're all plugged in the ICU and they kind of lose their appeal for me. CRNA was one of the things that I had considered early in my career. And then just my life took me in a different way and I fell in love with critical care. But my whole intention of going to the hospital I went to right out of school and the units that I worked on was to get into CRNA school. And I just didn't realize that I would fall in love with something else. Midwifery was never really an interest of mine, but if you love babies and OBGYN and obstetrics and the miracle of life, like that's a fantastic career to go into. Lots of autonomy, great hours, and good compensation. Clinical nurse specialist is a role that I feel like is kind of being phased out over time. It used to be a big role back in the day. And back in the day, the choice was really, you know, CRNA or clinical nurse specialist or nurse practitioner. The clinical nurse specialist is someone who basically has their roots in education and quality at the bedside and teaching and mentoring and guiding other nurses, but you needed a master's degree to do it. And then there was kind of this evolution in education and licensure where clinical nurse specialists can now go back to school and become nurse practitioners with additional education and training and a bridge program. But my path was always going to end up being a nurse practitioner. And you know, the reason that I'm speaking to you about this today is because I think you could look at me and think, all right, well, there's an example of a cautionary tale almost, insofar as, you know, 16 years ago when I was looking at nurse practitioner programs, there wasn't a lot to choose from in terms of variety of practice settings. And the APRN consensus model law had not even been thought of yet. So when I was looking at schools and trying to figure out what to do, you know, the kind of general gestalt was go become a family nurse practitioner in any practice setting. And that was true 16 years ago. However, it is unequivocally not true now. So next slide. So if you're going to go and become a nurse practitioner, the thing that you really, really need to understand, and again, this is part of your homework, and this is part of, you know, choosing your pathway and being deliberate about picking your pathway, is to understand that in January of 2016, there was a law that was passed called the APRN Consensus Model Law. And this law, the whole goal was to really improve patient safety and improve access for patient care. To ensure that the education and training programs and the pathways that people chose lined up with their licensure, accreditation, certification, and education. For example, a family nurse practitioner who built an entire career in critical care was family trained. Theoretically, you know, that's neonatology to gerontology and primary care. Now, my program allowed me to do all my electives in radiology, pathology. I did autopsies. That was my favorite rotation of all time. And to really kind of customize my program. And I was a professional critical care educator at the time. So for me, that was kind of logical, but now that doesn't really fly. And it's endorsed by all the credentialing bodies. So AACN, American Association of Nurse Practitioners, the American Association of Nurse Anesthetists, ACNP, ANA, all of these governing bodies really got behind the National Council for State Boards of Nursing and said, yes, we're going to endorse this with you. And it basically tells you the scope of practice, the criteria for entry, and the exams for competence for APRNs entering into the nurse practitioner realm. And they use this LACE model, which is a population-based focus model to really make sure that the licensure that you achieve and the accreditation that you have matches with the certification and education and training that you've been given. Next slide, thanks. And then, so once you become you're looking at nurse practitioner programs, there's predominantly 5 major categories to choose from. And they're population focused. So like pediatrics, you have a pediatric acute care nurse practitioner and you have a pediatric primary care nurse practitioner. So that means if you're going to see pediatric patients in the hospital, you're not rendering them primary care, and vice versa. If you're in a primary care setting, you're not doing acute care. And then from there, you also have the family nurse practitioner model still, which is still predominantly basically community and primary care focused and based. And then for the hospital, for adult gerontology, you can also choose primary care adult gerontology and acute care adult gerontology. So a lot of your hospital subspecialties will fall under that adult gerontology acute care tract and pathway. There's also psychiatric and mental health nurse practitioners. So a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner is not going to be seeing patients in the ICU as a critical care nurse practitioner. So you really have to know, and then neonatology is also still a separate specialty. So you really have to know what your passion is, if you will, and what your patient population is, and what you want to do. And that doesn't mean that once you pick a pathway and you get there and you achieve your licensure and your certification, that you can't switch gears and decide, okay, I'm going to take a job somewhere else. Like, say if I left critical care now and wanted to go work out in the community at like an urgent care center or a primary care office, I can do that because I have an FNP and I stay current with my FNP. But if I didn't, that's okay. Just like with my family nurse practitioner, all sorts of bridge programs are popping up, and they'll do what they call a gap analysis on your career. And the school that you apply to will look at what you've done professionally and tell you which classes you may be able to skip or test out of or CLEP and move forward. So I was actually fortunate enough I'm adjunct faculty at multiple universities, and I had been the primary instructor in some of the major classes. So I was able to kind of go back and get my adult gerontology acute care NP within a year. The piece to know about that is no one at the hospital, any hospital that I work at, came to me and told me, you don't have the right degree. They're like, oh, you're just a nurse practitioner. And they kind of put you all in this one bucket, this advanced practice provider bucket. But what I understood and what I knew, because I stay abreast of this, because it's no one else's responsibility other than my own to stay within my scope of practice and to practice within my boundaries and guidelines, is that the insurance companies no longer had to insure me. And you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you can't get insured by an insurance company for the position that you're working at in a hospital. So just something to think about before you go on that pathway. Once you pick a pathway, you can always change pathways. You can always move around and get more than one thing, but just know that you'll have to maintain the education and the certification and the recertification requirements for all of those things moving forward. Other concepts for graduate school. Graduate school is a little bit different than undergraduate school. As having been an adjunct faculty member and having taught many classes in graduate school, I often have to remind students that their attendance in graduate school, while yes, it's school, is still a professional environment. That, we can't fall back into the student ways of wearing pajamas to class like I used to when I was an undergrad. I used to roll out of bed and go to school in my sweats and in my pajamas, because in nursing, and especially at the advanced practice nursing, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And often, like if there's a position posted where I'm working, the first people that I think about to hire, I reach out to the best of the best students that impress me during their clinical rotations and impress me during school. You want to be professional at all times. You want to be proactive. Don't be one of those people that sits back and just like, oh, is this going to be on the test? Do I need to know that? Because invariably, like the professor's answer will likely be, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, you're deceased now because this person just memorized this for an exam. That's not how it is. In advanced practice, the one thing that I really wish was stressed a bit more in school is, yes, it is in the nursing model. And yes, we use that holistic, caring being that we are in order to become nurse practitioners. But you are truly also medically, legally responsible, like a physician is, for your practice and for the same amount of information. So if you don't know something, it's up to you to go figure it out. And no, you ever heard the expression, it's what you don't know? You have to know what you don't know. And it's okay not to know everything. I can't tell you, like, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not reading, looking something up, and teaching myself something new, because you can't possibly be an expert on everything. But it's important for you to be proactive and to kind of take that proactive approach, because when you go to nurse practitioner school or any of the advanced practice specialties, you're really embarking on a lifelong career of learning. And so what nurse practicing school and advanced practice school gives you, it doesn't give you the information to graduate and then go start being like a functional, successful right out of the gate person. You're going to need mentorship, you're going to need guidance, but it gives you the tools to figure it out and to critically think and formulate those thought processes and those pathways, so that as you're moving forward, you can assimilate information and become more familiar with patients and their care. I have a big thing about time. Be prompt. Nobody likes someone who's late, doesn't make a good impression. Be polished. It's okay to not know things, and just smile. I'm not sure, but I'll find out. That's always the key sentence. I don't know, but I will find out, and then follow up. Like, that's very important. It makes a huge impression on the people that are your clinical preceptors and mentoring and guiding you. And the big classes that we focus on in nurse practitioner school are, also the 3 Ps: pharmacology, pathophysiology, and physical assessment. Really, really give those 3 like the time and dedication that they deserve, because those are your building blocks for everything else moving forward. So you really want to try to be successful in those. You want to be successful in all of them, but those, I would say, are the 3 that I would stress the most. And understand that when you're at clinical and you've found, whether your school provides you a clinical person or whether or not you have to find your own. I was on, my first degree, I had to go find all my own preceptors. That was challenging. My second, actually, I did it for my second one too, but that was just because I'm in the field and I knew people. But they will match you up with preceptors sometimes, and sometimes you have to find your own. Understand that when you are there, that from the minute you walk through that door, you are in a perpetual job interview. Because if you do your job well and you are an excellent nurse practitioner student and you're learning, those people oftentimes will reach back out to you and say, okay, are you interested in this? I had an offer from a GI practice. I had an offer from an OBGYN practice. I had 2 offers from cardiology practices, just because I made a good impression as a student in my nurse practitioner piece. And then really understanding the practice laws and the certification requirements. It varies state by state. And then on top of that, so you really have to check with your boards of nursing to know what the requirements are for your specific state. And then you also have to know and understand your hospital bylaws as it pertains to how you practice moving forward. And again, no one's going to tell you this stuff. If you have a good preceptor or a good mentor, that person might help you and guide you. But what you also don't realize is, even in your programs, all the programs invariably will ask you to do something called like a portfolio or a professional, kind of showcasing of the education and training that you're getting during the program. What they don't tell you while you're doing that is that you are actually building a credentialing packet. And so when you're done with your portfolio and your school projects, you can look back and you will have pretty much 3/4 to 95% of a hospital credentialing packet ready to turn in so that you can get credentialed at a hospital when you get your first job. So use the tools that are given to you during school. Next slide. And then, from there, leadership. Inherently, I think that in nursing, we all, over time, as our skill sets grow and we gain competence and confidence and knowledge, inherently become leaders, not only, to our colleagues and to younger nurses, but to patients and families as well. The nursing is the #1 most trusted profession, right? 18 years running, I think. And so it's important if you gel with your preceptor. If you don't gel with your preceptor, that's also important, because you'll learn from every single person you encounter. I've had a couple preceptors where I've like, not going to do that. Like, that's not how I want to talk to people, or that's not how I'm going to do things. Not to say it's right or wrong, but like, you have to find your own style. And I've also had, a couple preceptors that, for a lack of a better word, were not the leader or the mentor that I hoped that they would be. So I don't know about, I think Nicole popped off for a split second, but we were talking about this yesterday. I actually kind of came up through the ranks without like an identified mentor. And I think that my road was harder because I didn't have an identified mentor. I kind of equated myself to a salmon swimming upstream. Like I had to figure it all out the hard way. Like I've learned my lessons the hard way. And that's okay, you know, because failing is what? First attempt in learning. Um, but when you have your first attempt in learning, like you have to pick yourself up and move forward. And I try now very hard, and which is why, you know, I think that the Do Influence is such a worthwhile cause and such a worthwhile project, because I didn't have those mentors, that I really strive to be that mentor for the people that I'm fortunate enough to precept. You know, so all of my preceptees, my orientees, the people that I've trained throughout the years, I talk to them all. Like we text each other, they call me, they can call me in a clinical situation. And I serve as that mentor and that role model to help them not only in clinical situations, but, you know, with professional decision making. Like I have these 2 job offers, like what am I going to do? You know, and I help them drill down to what career path they're going to take. And fortunately, I can say now at this point in my career, I actually have encountered 2 women who have become a mentor to me. And now they're pushing me into things that I never thought possible for myself. Like I just wrote a chapter in a book that's coming out next month. You know, like if you asked me a year ago, I was like, I don't write, like that's not my thing. But now I'm considering like even more writing. And they've encouraged me to kind of spread my wings and do more things. And I think that that's, you know, really, really important for you to have. So if you can find and identify a mentor early, that's great, because that's just someone that's going to be right there by your side who will help you be successful with whatever goals that you want to do. Aside from that, you're going to want to join a professional organization. So if you're a midwife and your subspecialty is going to be, you know, OBGYN and delivering babies, you're going to want to join, you know, the obstetrics group for that. If you're in critical care like myself, it's the American Association of Critical Care Nurses and the Society of Critical Care Medicine. No matter what you do as an advanced practice nurse, you would want to join AANP, because all of these professional organizations, again, it's about networking. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Provide you with opportunities to get involved, and they give you education, they give you training, they give you access to all sorts of policies, procedure, protocols. There's more than one way to do things. It's a lot of brainstorming, it's a lot of information sharing, and it's a lot of, you know, support for you professionally, keeping up with the state and federal regulations of your role. And then I also encourage you to get involved in your workplace, local and regional initiatives. And it's often through a professional organization, but don't be afraid to be the junior member of a committee at the hospital, because you're going to learn so much, even just sitting at the table with the other people who have gone before you. You're always going to be taking from everyone that's around you and growing your practice as you move forward. So it's important to not only give back, but it's also important for your own learning, growth, and development to realize that there's more than one way to do things. And oftentimes people have ideas that, like, I'm like, wow, that's so simple. Why did that not occur to me? But again, it's because, you know, my learning style, I'm a very linear person, and my learning style is very much see one, do one, teach one. But it's important for you to build your professional resume so that you can stand out, and that you'll find that doors and opportunities will open to you as you move forward throughout your career. I don't remember what this was.
This was our the Q&A slide. So if anybody had typed in questions into the thing, I can't see the chat, so I don't know if there are questions maybe in the chat.
So everybody, we're so glad you joined us. It's your turn. Do you have any questions for Erin or Nicole? What has sparked your interest? Feel free to raise your hand in the chat, or in Zoom, or type your question right in. If you are not comfortable speaking out loud, you can send the message to the Do Influence privately, and myself or Taya would be happy to answer that question, or pose it to Erin and Nicole. So what is it that you guys want to know? What little last minute things? I know we're right on our time here, so if you've got to run, feel free. But tell us what you want to know. What questions do you have? Let's see, I'm trying to make sure I can see everybody at the same time.
One of the questions that I had been asked previously is, this is for either Nicole and or Aaron or both. What advice would you give to students in terms of selecting their mentor? I know, Aaron, you talked about it being difficult, even having one along your journey. But if a student is faced with a fortunate situation where they have a lot of options, how do you suppose they choose one? What are the things they should look for in a mentor to help them in their nursing career?
I think that you would pick someone that you genuinely get along with, that can, someone that you look at professionally and you're like, wow, I really want to be like that. Someone that, has the qualities of not only a human being, but the caregiver that you wish to aspire to. I would, those would be the kind of things that I would look out for. And like I said, I, found my mentors later in life. I had to flat out look at one of them and just be like, will you be my mentor? Because she had some of the things, professionally, and she was moving forward, and she's a big deal at the national level. And I was, I was gracious, she was gracious enough to look at me and say, yeah, I'll help take you to that next step. I'll bring you along for the journey, because inherently that's what leaders do, right? True leaders, authentic leaders, are not the people standing out in front of the crowd waving the flag screaming, I'm a leader. It's the person who's quietly elevating those people all around them and helping them be successful and leading from the back of the pack. And I try to do that too with my mentees. Like, I'm only successful if they're successful, as I'm moving them forward and helping them to achieve their goals and their dreams. And their goals and dreams are not always mine or even related to anything I do, but I feel a responsibility to help them get there. And will do whatever I can, reach out to whatever contacts I have to help them achieve what it is that they want to achieve.
And I would agree with Aaron, making sure that it is somebody that you gel with and you have some type of connection, but also too, everybody is not cut out to be a mentor. So kind of like she said, where she had to ask the one person, I would definitely ask, being a mentor can be a big responsibility. And like I said, you can mesh with somebody, gel with somebody, but a mentor is not a teacher, but if mentorship is not really in their heart, the communication lines will probably not be open. And what you don't want to be is more of a bother to someone who does not want to be a mentor. So you know what I mean? Like she said, if you find that person that you do have that connection with, don't be afraid to ask, because like I say, it's better to ask and they say no than for you to kind of keep pestering them, and sending them emails or asking them this and asking them that. And they're like, I'm really not trying to be bothered. So definitely making sure that that person wants to be a mentor, I think is also a big thing too, on top of the relationship and connection that you have with that person.
I volunteer. We're here on the Do Influence. Feel free to reach out to us. Anything that I can do to help someone who's up and coming become successful and achieve their goals moving forward in their profession. I mean, that's what this is all about.
Thank you, ladies. That's wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much.
And the Do Influence, and Tayo already wrote it down in there. We do have a mentorship program. Go ahead, Tayo.
Yes, with the Do Influence, both Nicole and Aaron are our mentors extraordinaire on the Do Influence. And, we do have a mentorship program that we really want to basically help young people succeed in whatever profession they want to go into. And nursing is one of those. So please, I put the link in there. You do a quick little application process. It's really just to make sure that these are not, bots and things like that are registering and they're real people. But you'll go ahead and fill that out and we put you in contact with these great mentors. And, you establish that relationship, and it's even really just questions, advice, guidance. It's like, hey, I was going to take this course, but do you think I should? Do you think it's worth it? Or do you think I should take it next semester instead? Things like that. They're basic questions, but they can make a huge difference for you and your career. So I definitely recommend getting a mentor in whatever you want to go into, or even whatever you're considering going into, just to be able to talk to one of them on a personal level, right? Right now we're doing a webinar that, that's for everyone, and everyone will listen, everyone can go back and watch, but having a mentor is that that one-on-one, very particular and specific to your situation.
Mhm.
All right. I see some other people still in the chat. Are there, so let me just see with the show of hands, or you can either raise your physical hand if you're on video or click the little hand button or respond in the chat. How many of you are high school students interested in nursing? Or feel free to talk in the chat, in the dialogue box too, whichever way. Okay, and how about any of you are college students and or already in nursing school?
Kyle, it looks like nobody wants to talk to us today. Come on, you guys.
Oh, there we are. Okay, I see there.
Sorry, I just rather actually talk in the video. It's really hard for me to.
Yeah, go.
wonderful.
Please talk. Yeah,
I
you
was like
can talk.
reading. I was like, I
Hey,
don't
there
know
we
if I
go,
should say
participant.
something. Okay. Hi
We'd love
everyone.
to
My
hear
name's
from you.
Allow.
Hi,
I'm
Alana.
currently I'm a nursing student at Central Connecticut State University. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that you guys have this platform like on Instagram and this Zoom meeting where I can talk and discuss, because a lot of these things that you've been discussing are things that I've been discussing myself within my own day-to-day thoughts, like, oh, should I choose this field and whatever. And I know eventually once I get to, because I'm actually very early on in the program, once I get to like hands-on and, you know, seeing like what I like and what I don't like, I think I'll know even more. But I kind of had more of a question for like working as like a person of color within like healthcare field in general. I think a lot of the times for me, I just kind of feel a bit of an imposter syndrome. Like I'm experiencing that, like, can I do this? And because there's not, specifically in my program, there's not really many people that I can really go to and talk to, other students. And I think when you mentioned the, what was it? I forget what we were just talking about.
Mentorship?
Like having someone to talk to, mentor. Yes, sorry, I just completely blanked. Having like a mentor, that's something that I feel like would help a lot. Is there anything else? Have you guys experienced that, like going through this process and like taking courses and working in hospitals? And like, if so, like what has helped you kind of move things along and make you feel like, yeah, I do deserve to be here and this is totally for me?
I'll take that question.
Yeah, good question.
Been there, and here I am today. So I know you said that there's not really too much in your program. I'll be honest, my program, I think we started with roughly 70 students. At that time, I think it was maybe 5 African-American students of that 70. We graduated 32, and it was 2 of us, me and another girl. I had some struggles in, you know, throughout that 4 years being kind of that only person. I did have one teacher of color. All of my other teachers, you know, they did not look like me. What I will say, and you'll get comments not only from your classmates, sometimes even from the teachers, obviously your patients. My biggest word of advice is hold your head high. Do not let others dictate your future. If nursing is something that you want to do, then by all means do it. You know, prove those people wrong in every way that you can. If it's that teacher that said, you know, gives you some snarky remark, okay, that's cool. You know, be upset about it for an hour, you know, a couple days, whatever the case may be, but eventually get over it. Prove her wrong. You know, same with your patient. You know, I haven't had too many issues with patients, but every blue moon, you know, there's always that one patient, and that's fine. You know, it's their personal preference, but you do what you can do, be the best nurse that you can be, and hopefully give them reason to hopefully change their thought process and their thinking about people who do not look like them. And I don't think that's necessarily specific to nursing. I think that's going to be in every career field that you have. You know what I mean? I'm African American and I'm a woman. So I have, you know, both of those things, you know, kind of making me different from the other people that, you know, I work alongside or I practice alongside. But like I say, don't let others dictate your future. If you know you want to be a nurse, then you just need to do everything that you can to prove all of those people wrong. And that at the, you know, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that you can do. If you let them dictate your future, you know, like I say, it's not specific towards nursing. I mean, that could be really in any career field that anybody chooses. So you know, finding a mentor, whether that be through the Do Influence. I know you said you don't really have too much at your school. So Do Influence, you know, would probably be a good start for you to find that mentor. And it's okay to have more than one mentor. So, you know, you can fill out the form here to get a mentor through Do Influence. And maybe as you progress through the career or through school and or your career, then, you know, that network will grow and you'll get those relationships and that, you know, and you can always, you know, get more. But I think this will probably be a good start for you if you are already noticing some of those things, kind of being that woman of color in the program.
Absolutely. I was going to jump in, unless you wanted to jump in, Erin.
I just wanted to say the imposter syndrome thing is not just, I mean, I think everybody has that. I know I have it all the time. You know, the idea that no matter what I achieve or what I do is just not enough. And I'm always worried about how people are perceiving me, how I'm representing myself. I can't speak to the other piece, obviously. But I agree with Nicole. You want it, you go get it. Don't take no for an answer. You do you, and everything, you know, will work out in the end as it's supposed to.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Just to kind of piggyback up of that, also being a person of color in medicine, I'm a female surgeon. I'm also Black, right? So there are a couple things there that may not look like everyone else. But the good thing that I can tell you is that I am seeing more and more young women and men of different creeds and genders and everything in between, more interested in professions that classically they wouldn't necessarily think that they could be a part of. You know, a lot of times when young people don't see themselves in a certain position or in a certain type of industry, they don't think they can do it either. For me, I think the biggest thing that I can say to you is to understand that the only person standing back at the mirror is you. So you control how you react to any and every situation. So you are going to be faced with many situations, some that are fair, some that are unfair, some are that are completely wrong, some are that you till today are like, whoa, you know, where did that come from? That's going to happen. But how I react to that situation is in my control. The reason why I say it is the same reason why people may make comments or act a certain way. Most of the time, it could be not just under ignorance, but it could just be under fear, right? So a lot of times people don't understand what they don't know, and some people fear what they don't know. So you be confident in yourself and be the best that you can at what you're doing. That's the best piece of advice I can give for you. Is for me, I get asked this question all the time, you know, you're a Black female surgeon, this and that. And I said, yes, and right? So I just know for me that I'm going to be the best surgeon that I can be. And I happen to be Black and I happen to be female, but I'm going to be the best surgeon that I can be. So I always say to people when they ask me this question, you know, do you feel like you've been, you know, you had the odds and things like that? And I say, no, because it's mind over matter for me. I say, I am a good, I don't want to brag, I'm a pretty damn good surgeon, okay? But I happen to be Black and I happen to be female. I don't use those things as weaknesses. Those are not weaknesses to me. I'm a surgeon, you know, so are my male colleagues. Some are who are Caucasian, some are who are not. So are my female colleagues. Some are who are Caucasian, some are who are not, right? Let's be surgeons. And then all the other descriptive factors can come after. You will be a nurse and then you'll be all those other things after, right? So just remember that. I tell myself it's a state of mind. Don't allow other people's fears, other people's ignorance, and other people's, whatever it is that they may have influence the way that I react and the way that I think and the way that I act about a situation, because that's not me talking, that's them. So let me continue doing what I'm going to do and be very good at what I'm doing. So I always got told by my dad that it's how you lay your bed, or how you lay your bed is how you will lay in it, right? So if you do a really good job and you are very good at what you do, then, and so basically you laid your bed really well, then when you're time to lay down in that bed, AKA be that surgeon, be that nurse, be the nurse practitioner, whatever it is, then you can lay in it well. If you were very rocky and, like you were like, you didn't, it was all wrinkled and stuff when you laid it down and it was all like kind of janky, when you lay in it, it's going to be janky too. And people are going to see that. Right. But if you made it like, you put it on that, like the wrinkle guard thing on the dryer, you know what I mean? You had real smooth sheets, you had a real good foundation, people will also see that. So that way, if anything ever comes up a question, people will be like, listen, she's a really good surgeon, or she's a really good nurse practitioner, and he's a really good, you know what I mean? So be good at what you do. So that way, like there's no one can ever question anything. If they question stuff, it's not about like your capability, your aptitude for the subject matter or anything. It's about their own fears. You know what I mean? So no one can ever say to me like, well, they could say to me things like, well, she is very loud and very commanding. Yes, I am. Does that make me not a good surgeon? No, not at all. Right. You know what I mean? So like people are going to say things and people are going to have certain preconceived notions, and you just react, you control the way you react. One of the big things that I'll let you know that comes out all the time, and people use these terms, right? The biggest thing for me is when people say, like they'll want to say like the angry Black woman thing, right? And I'm sure I've probably been called that behind my back. I've never been called it to my face, which maybe is a win. I've also never been I've also never been written up or like been in the principal's office for anything. You want to know why? Because when I'm faced with those situations and I know, right? So the nurse is crying or the patient is crying, something like that. I say to myself, what I really want to do is say, you messed up, the patient, you didn't listen, and this is your fault. But if and when I say that, how is it helping the exact situation? So in that particular situation, I'm controlling how I react, right? So what I'm going to say is, ma'am, I am so sorry that this happened to you, even though it's your fault, right? But no one needs to know that right now. It's your fault, right? You know what I mean? Like I told you to stay and you wanted to leave the hospital against medical advice, even though I said, this is going to need surgery. And you said no. And I said, okay. And you said, well, I'm going to leave because I know better, even though there's only one board certified surgeon in the room and it's me, but you know better. But I'm not going to say that, right? If I imagine if I said that to a patient and I said that in a situation, how do you think the situation is going to go, right? So I always tell myself, like, you can have conversations in your head, right? But what comes out of your mouth is what you need to control. And just like Erin and Nicole, y'all probably like, there are multiple conversations that we have in our heads that we have to say to ourselves, right? And just move on because you control the way you react. And just to kind of bring it home, to me, it doesn't matter that I'm Black or that I'm female. If I was a male Caucasian, it wouldn't matter, right? The way that you react to a certain situation will dictate the outcome. So just remember that no one can make you act in a way that you don't want to, right? They can push you, right? They can, elbow you and get you close, but you have to have that self-control at the end of the day. And that's all I can really say. So for me, I just say, I take the prejudice and I put it on a shelf and I keep on moving, right? Because the same way that, someone can be prejudiced against me, I don't want to do the reverse thing and be prejudiced against someone else. Why? Because especially in healthcare, right? You take care of people of all different races. I've taken care of patients. I've had to operate on patients who've had, the N-word tattooed on their body, in a bad way, who've had like the KKK and who've had things like that on their body. Did I treat that patient any different than anybody else? No. Did that patient at the end of the day maybe say to me like, hey, I'm really sorry that this may have offended you, right? Look, I've literally had patients who, I took care of them, and I don't think I've necessarily changed their whole life per se, but maybe I had them stop and think for a second, because maybe they've never really been able to have a conversation or seen someone like me, right? Other than what they see in media or what they perceive to be someone like me. So I guess the point I'm making is, just with 2020 and everything the way it is, we all have to get closer to a place of love, right? And very easy to say us versus them or them versus us. And to me, I'm just like, we're all one people. We are a human race. So, we have to start throwing out some of that hyperbole, right? Some of those things that give us that emotional reaction when we say certain words, you control the way you react to those things. So just remember, especially when you want to go into healthcare, you have to be able to love everyone, man, woman, and everything in between, as your fellow brother or sister and everything in between. That's all I could say.
Well,
Sorry,
absolutely.
that was
That's
a
good.
long-winded answer, but it just came out.
No, that was amazing. You said it perfectly. I think um that's how everyone needs to think. I'd hope the same thing for everyone when I go in. I'm not looking at oh, they have these views, or they're this color or this gender or whatever. I'm just looking at them as their whole being. They're a human being. They deserve care. They deserve support. They deserve everything that everyone else does. That's what I hope to achieve. Have that. There's no racial inequity or gender gap or any of that. It's just, this is a person, and I'm treating them as a patient, as a client, as anyone else should. So I think that's very good to think of, just how I kind of have to push these thoughts back into my subconscious, and hopefully, actually kind of just release them, because I feel it's just a process. It's just something that we're rewiring my brain, and it's just kind of like a network going on, and I have to take these negative thoughts away and reinforce them with positive ones, with the truth of who I am. And I think definitely through, talking to people that do have that experience, that are already in the just healthcare field in general, but even specifically nurses, because that's what I want to do. I just feel when I hear more of that, it's just, I don't know, it kind of lights a fire inside of me. I love to see that you're just still pushing and pursuing and doing what you want, regardless of your obstacles or anything that you've had to face. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I just would add one last piece to that, because it's an important piece to me in my life, that I just want to share with the students and things like that are on here. Coming from a place of understanding is the most important thing, regardless of what specialty that you're in. Because when you don't come from a place of understanding, you're not going to be able to understand what other people's thoughts and professions are, right? So I'm going to give you Erin for an example. Erin and I are colleagues. We work with the sickest patients in the hospital together, but Erin and I are also friends. And we don't look alike, right? Maybe in terms of our skin color, but we do look alike because we're both humans. So I think for me, it's very important for people to kind of put a lot of this extra, someone doesn't look like me, someone doesn't think like me, someone doesn't, who says that? How do you know that? How are you going to know that if you cannot connect with a fellow human? So I think it's very important, and to, for us to analyze our relationships in general, right? Professional, personal, and everything in between. If we come from a place of understanding, we're going to be able to learn from each other. And I just think that, I'm not here to be like, we are the world, Michael Jackson, or anything like that. Don't worry, I won't break out into song, even though it's a great song. But the point I'm making is, let's all come from a place of understanding, and whatever those thoughts and things like that are, whatever race you are, because every race has their trials and tribulations, right? And one race does not necessarily have the most trials and tribulations than everyone else. Some races have had more trials and tribulations, absolutely, but every race has had trials and tribulations. So why don't we just take it as a human race, right? And learn to accept each other and understand each other and come from a place of love. That's the way I kind of look at it. So those thoughts, whenever I think about those things, I just go, dude, like those thoughts, I look at them and I just kind of let them drive by, and I keep on moving, because what's in front of me is being a good surgeon, being a good physician, being a good clinician, right? That's what you want to keep, what's in front of you, and let that other stuff just kind of slide by, like they say, brush it off your shoulders.
And can I just say one more thing? All the things that you had just articulated about taking care of people and, that being your passion, like, you're already a nurse. Like that's the stuff we can't teach. You know, you either have that or you don't. And you already articulated it to all of us on this panel. Like your heart is a nursing heart. And so just don't place limitations on yourself. Like the sky is the limit. Don't have that imposter syndrome because you're already there.
Thank you.
100%. Are there any other questions or comments or anything?
I have a question.
Yes. Hi.
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 I'm in high school and I'm thinking of like my next steps towards college and stuff. And I've kind of like, I don't know, I usually learn by putting myself into really difficult situations, and that's like how like I become the better version of myself, and I've always been like that. But like my freshman year, I like put too much expectations on myself, and it caused me to like cripple, and like I fell into a really bad like mental health and stuff like that. So I didn't necessarily perform how I wanted to my freshman year. But like since then I've fixed my grades. I got a like 4.3 GPA. Versus like what I was getting before, which was a 3.5, which is like I'm super hard on myself.
Which is
And I
simply
kind of
amazing.
and I kind of just like I've been feeling lately like not necessarily not belonging. Like I've always wanted to work in the medical field since I was a kid, but it's kind of a there's so much competition within like this field, and like every time you go to a website it's like this GPA and this SAT score, and sometimes like I feel like my past mistakes are going to like block me when I like start embarking on this like journey of college.
Can I take this one? Because you know, you wouldn't know it now. Like I have 2 graduate degrees, and I was a valedictorian in my for my first graduate program, and I had a 4.3 GPA in my second graduate program. But high school was a 2.7. Like I did not get it until like I was out there in the world and paying attention. And then when I went to Fairfield University for my baccalaureate in nursing, and I got mono, and I didn't get out of bed for an entire semester. I was found unconscious twice in my dorm room and was very sick, ended up in the hospital and got a 197 from my dorm bed. And I overcame that and still graduated with a 3.6. So don't let those kinds of things hold you back. Your path isn't written yet, and you have nothing, everything in, you know, everything's in front of you. I think there's this an actor who says this, there's a meme about him, Sam Neill, and it says, you know, that the reason that the rear view mirror is so small and the dashboard is, and the windshield is so wide, is because you have to look forward to the future, and you have to put those small things behind you as you move forward. So I know that you know, you said you place a lot of expectations on yourself, but I encourage you to try to be kinder to yourself, because there's only one you, and there's only one of you who can bring the unique gifts and qualities and things that you are going to bring to whatever profession you decide to do. And if you're obviously considering nursing, some of our greatest successes come through our failures. And sometimes you have to stumble and fall a little bit in order to find yourself in the next opportunity that's right for you. Nothing ever, you know, please don't like look at me. I mean, I'm sure Nicole or even Tayo and think, oh, they got everything they ever wanted professionally, because that's not true. Like there's been positions I've gone out for that I haven't gotten. And at the time, like they're soul sucking and devastating. And I cry for like 10 minutes and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from that? Time to pull my, you know, my bootstraps up and figure out like, what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn and how am I going to move forward? And when one door closes, I mean, it's absolutely true, another one opens. And I think that the opportunities that I've had professionally, I view myself as successful now as a 45-year-old woman because of the failures that I have had and the lessons that I've had to learn along the way. And the fact that I didn't always get exactly what I wanted, whether it be the GPA or, you know, the dream position or what have you. So try to be kinder to yourself. And that's the other thing too, you know, nursing school and nurse practitioner school and all of it, it's stressful, super stressful. And Nicole was talking about, you know, balancing it with, you know, your hard class with some of your easier classes. But I also encourage you all to really, really, really focus on self-care. I never got that memo when I was going through school. It was, you know, school and ambition and the job. And when I became a, you know, nurse, it was climb the ladder and be the best and do what I can do. And I want this and I want that and I want that promotion and I'm going to make more money and I'm going to do this. And it's cost me. Like as a 45-year-old person, I can look back and say, you know, is my physical well-being the best that it should be for someone my age? Probably not. And I really wish that someone had taken me by the shoulder when I was younger and said, you know, don't quit exercising, you know, go to the gym 3 times a week. No, Doritos are not the answer to your stress right now while you're studying at 3 a.m. You know, try an apple instead. You know, simple things like that, like go for a walk with your girlfriends or listen to music, or, you know, if you're a painter or whatever your passion is, you know, and your hobbies, like don't give those things up. Like you really, really have to make room and time for them all so that you can be a well-rounded person. Because if you think about it logically, the patients that are entrusted to our care deserve the very best of us. Right? They don't deserve the person that's, you know, addicted to the 6 cups of coffee a day and can't make it past 12 noon without having, you know, 4 cups before noon. You know, that they really deserve a person who is well rested and thoughtful and, you know, kind and compassionate. And so I encourage you to just really be kinder to yourself and don't place those expectations on yourself. Yes, I know it says those things on the website, but there's always room. You know, they'll take someone who doesn't meet like their 3.6 requirement, who if they have a 3.4 and they're an outstanding human being, you know, with community service and represent themselves well. Because what they really ultimately want is a quality person, a human, someone who's going to come into our profession and embody the things that nursing is all about. That was just my 2 cents.
I would agree.
100%. And I just wanted to say, just remember, a guideline is a recommendation.
It's not a law written in stone. And the other thing is too,
Say it again. Wait. Say it again.
Oh, I said a guideline is only a recommendation.
Ah, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
And Erin added, it is not a law.
It's not.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no difference. You know, it took me a while to learn this too. There's no difference between someone who went to school and, you know, got the 4.0 GPA and the person who went to school and maybe had an easy, like took an easier road, didn't, you know, go crazy and got a 3.2. Because ultimately at the end of the day, when you sit for your boards and you both come out with the same degree, no one's going back to look at your grades to see if they're going to hire you. They just want to know, did you pass the NCLEX? Do you have the degree? So I'm not saying, you know, I'm saying obviously do your due diligence. Please be a good student. Please try your best and please try to learn all that you can, but don't beat yourself up about it, because in the long run, like it took me becoming an adult and looking back to say, oh, that stuff just doesn't matter. It doesn't. What matters is the end game.
Mhm.
Agreed.
And all that you learn on the journey on the way there.
I mean, my path, I agree with what they said. And my path, I'll be honest, a lot of the content that I spoke about today is because of the failures that I personally experienced. And so because I've experienced those failures and I've taken those 2 steps back from different times along my nursing career path, you know, that's how I'm able to bring you this information today. So, you know, I may present as, oh my goodness, she's this nurse practitioner and she's got to be, you know, over the top smart and has never had a struggle a day in her life, where to be honest has been the complete opposite. And that's, like I say, that's really where a lot of the content from my portion of the presentation came from, was from my own personal failures and or struggles that ultimately, as you can see, because I'm here today, I overcame them. And so, I mean, if your GPA is a 4 point whatever, you know what I mean? As you, I don't know where you want to go to school. I don't know if you're in that part of your high school portion where you're kind of figuring out what schools you want to go to and, digging into their site, looking at their testing recommendations and their GPA requirements and stuff like that. But kind of how I said, figure out what your school needs and aim higher. I can guarantee you're already at that aimed higher spot, because most colleges, with the GPA like that, acceptance, as long as you do your due diligence, the remainder of your time in high school, being admitted and being accepted into a college program at this point, I don't foresee being your biggest struggle. I think a lot of money will probably come your way with GPAs looking like that. So I definitely do think you have room to kind of take a breather. Don't, like Erin said, don't be so hard on yourself. Like I say, I don't know you personally, but it sounds like you're doing everything that you need to be doing if this is the career that you really want to take. So, like I say, keep doing what you're doing, but also, like I say, allow yourself some free time, that mental health component that Erin talked about too. So I think you'll be okay if you keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you guys so much for that.
You're so welcome.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Hi, my name is Roja Yusuf, and I'm also a high schooler. I'm a junior, and I just started the process of exploring the nursing career. And I'm going to say I was truly inspired during this talk. I feel so much more motivated at the moment. And I just wanted to ask, what do you think is the best way to start exploring schools and what possible fields of interest you might have?
I guess I can take it. As far as schools, narrow down, do you want to do associates or bachelors, and kind of figure it out from there. Do you want to stay close to home, close to mom and dad and family and, the friends that you already have? Or would you like to kind of, maybe branch out a little bit? I don't know if any of your friends that you are really close with now plan to maybe get into nursing, and maybe, you and him or her can maybe go to the same college. So that you're not there by yourself. Obviously, like I say, looking at requirements of schools to make sure that, let's say, I don't know, you want to move to Florida and I don't even know, is there a University of Florida? I guess, go to their website and see what is the University of Florida's requirements. You're a junior now, I think you said, are you there? You know what I mean? If within the next year between now and when you graduate, will you be able to meet what they say? I'll give an extreme example. If they're saying that you need a 4.0 and let's say you're sitting at a 1.2, can you get to a 4.0 in the next year and a half? Probably not. So you may want to, check that school off your list, because what you don't want to do is find these schools that have these super high expectations and you struggle to get there and you don't get there, because then you're going to have that feeling of being a failure. So you want to look at schools, like I say, that are suitable for what you currently have on the table right now. And or over the course of the next year and a half until you graduate would be my advice. And then I don't remember the second part of your question.
I also asked, how do you shape what field of interest that you have while you're going through this process?
And so once you get into nursing school and you begin to have your clinicals, that hands-on portion, that's kind of really where you will figure out what you like and what you don't like. For me, once I got to that clinical portion, I knew pregnant women, peds, and psych were not going to be my thing. But I didn't know that until I got knee deep into those clinicals. And I was like, yeah, this really isn't the field for me. So like I said, once you start getting hands-on, that I think is really where you will figure it out. I would say go into every clinical with an open mind though. Because for me, I also thought, earlier in my nursing school career, nowhere did I want to be an ICU nurse ever. What did I do for 6 years?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to. I'm hearing that and I'm shocked because I know Nicole Nicole was an ICU nurse where I trained. We became friends. I put in an order and it was all messed up. And Nicole called me, was like, excuse me, Dr. New hot shot. This is not correct. And I was like, what? Who is this chick? And I went down there to talk to her. And where are we now? Almost a decade later. So Nicole was a fantastic ICU nurse. So I was just shocked to hear that. I'm sorry, but continue.
But so, and like she said, what I did for my entire bedside career, I started out in neuro ICU for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And then I did 6 years in med surg trauma ICU. I loved it. To this day, I miss it. But I don't know how I got there. You know what I mean? So I don't write off any particular specialty until you get in there and you get your feet wet. Because had I completely written off ICU and, you know, not taking that job interview and not accepting that position, I don't know. Like I say, I'm an adrenaline junkie at heart now, and I miss ICU every single day. And I probably cried for a little bit when I first left it. I do primary care now, so it's the complete opposite. But don't write off anything until you get your feet wet. Go into every clinical, every class with a open mind. And like I say, then slowly begin to check things off your list, you know, if you're just like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. But do everything with the open mind up front and narrow it down once you get that experience and kind of see what each of those specialties brings. Because you never know. And you don't want to get to the point where you cross everything off and now it's like there's nowhere to go, and you know what I mean, and you haven't given certain things a try. So that would probably be my advice for that in regards to finding that specialty, finding your niche.
I would agree with that. Like, you never know. I never thought like I was going to have a career in critical care. Never. Like I said, like I everything, you know, when I was younger, we used to have these shadow experiences in high school. And I followed a nurse anesthetist around and I was like, aha, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into anesthesia. And then lo and behold, I fell in love hard with critical care. And I still can't get out of it. It's been 23 years now and I'm still in love with critical care. And every time I'm like, oh, maybe I could try this on for size. That was the good thing about going back to school a second time for a second master's, is I tried on all these other things that I thought I might be interested in, but guess what? Hepatobiliary oncology, not for me. GYN oncology, definitely not for me. Neurosurgery, not really my cup of tea. But, you know, good intra-abdominal catastrophes, septic shock, multi-system organ failure, like that really like lights my fire and my passion. And you just never know. And I also too, like I went to my GYN clinical, like kicking and screaming, like, oh God, I can't do this. I don't want to look at lady bits all day. I'm going to pass out. I don't think that this is for me. What if I do something terrible to them, the speculum? And then I actually, like, through the course of my rotation was like, this isn't so bad. Like, I saw the difference that the doctors made, and I saw the difference that the nurse practitioner made. And I was like, wow, I actually for a little bit thought maybe I could do that. And even still, like I think I mentioned earlier, I did a pathology rotation. If I am not a critical care, a PRN, I would go back to school and become a pathologist. Because I'll tell you, I never thought that a summer of autopsies would light my fire, but there is nothing like holding body parts in your hands and seeing the dysfunction of somebody who's had a heart attack or, you know, some sort of trauma to a specific organ, to really understand pathophysiology and pathology. So just be, I agree with Nicole, completely open, and whichever way the wind blows you, that's the beauty of nursing, right? It might blow you over here, and then you might be like, the winds of change are taking me over here. Maybe you fall in love with endocrinology. Maybe dermatology lights your fire. Nothing like a head to toe skin rash, you know, to really like excite some people sometimes. You just never know. So be, just like Nicole said, be open.
Thank you so much. That really helps.
You're welcome.
And good luck.
Excellent. Well, If there are no other questions, I appreciate everyone for being a part of this awesome discussion today. Thank you so much to our speakers, Ms. Nicole Crooks, Ms. Erin Hallinan. It has been an absolute pleasure. I didn't expect anything less, but I got so much more. And I just thank you guys so much. To our audience, thank you guys so much for being a part of the event today, for participating, for chatting with us. You know, one of the big things with the Do Influence that really is the influence that we're trying to put out there is this, right? So, you know, it may not be thousands of people, but even just one person, two people, three people, if we're able to affect you in a positive way, influence you in a positive way, it makes what we're doing all the more worthwhile. We volunteer to do this. This is, you know, all of our own time. And we just want to be able to put that out there. And just thank you guys for making what we've been doing and what we're doing and volunteering even more worthwhile for us. So thank you. You guys have the link in the chat box. So please go ahead and, you know, you can chat with Nicole and Erin. We'll give you their contact information through the New Influence mentoring program. There's, you know, it's not like you get put on a waiting list or anything like that. It's just to make sure that you're a real person, which we know you are. But please definitely, you know, sign up. And again, remember, mentorship does not mean that you're like you're not like disappointing someone. You know what I mean? A mentor could just be someone that you talk to about what you want to go into, and it may, and you may, what you may want to go into doesn't mean that you have to go into that thing, right? I have mentors that are not in medicine. You know, if you go to CCSU, you may know Miss Jackie Kabina Boyven. She's one of my mentors. Jackie's not a doctor, you know, but I met Jackie when I was 18 years old, and, you know, she's a friend now. But, you know, she was a mentor of mine. And so mentors don't necessarily have to be someone that's in this exact thing that you want to go into. So just remember that. It could just be someone to talk to about your ideas and things like that, about possibilities. So please, I encourage everyone to use this great resource that we have available to them. Definitely follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have a webinar every month. Next month is going to be interview skills. So, you know, at some point you're going to be interviewing for something, whether it's a job, whether it's for school, right? Colleges, you're going to be doing interviews. So we have a really great presenter next month that's going to talk to us about what are the best ways to present yourself? What are the tips and tricks to be successful at your interview and get the job or get the position or get into the school that you're trying to get into? So, you know, if you follow us on social media, all those links we advertise all the time, so you'll be able to get to that. So definitely, we want to hear from you. So contact us, email us, tell us things that you like, things that you didn't like. And if there's some ideas, some things that you want us to talk about, send them over. We want to do it. This is for you guys. So if there are things that you want us to you know, do a webinar on and things like that, let us know, because we can make it happen. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.